Venkatesh. As Pete mentioned, we're based in Washington, D.C. The company is called mPortal. We are a 13-year-old company, and the focus of the company has really been around what we call enabling connected experiences. So all the work we've been doing is around mobile, tablet, and connected TVs. What I want to do today is really talk about how tablets and television are sort of two peas in a pod. And I was thinking about Seattle, and I tried to weave Sleepless in Seattle in some way into the deck, and I couldn't make it work, so I went with the other Meg Ryan movie about Harry meeting Sally. And I think the analogy is very apt because when you start talking about tablets at a tablet conference, and then a guy comes along and starts talking about TVs, and I was glad that Curtis was on ahead of me from Samsung, talking about the living room and what's going on in the living room. But if you take a step back, I think what we're really starting to see at mPortal is there is a huge wave coming where the television industry, and by that I mean the video market, is starting to look at what are the other ways by which video is consumed. Clearly, we all talk about online video, we all talk about the things that are going on, but probably the most disruptive thing that is happening in the marketplace today, primarily in the US, is we have become the United States of tablets, is what we like to say. There are about 100 million people in the US who now have tablets. And that is a staggering sum when you think about the fact that in April, 3 years ago, was the first time there was a tablet launched, which is the first version of the iPad. And if you look at the growth rates of the number of tablets that have been launched over the last 3 years, it is nothing short of spectacular from growth of a device that primarily used to be, people used to talk about, well, it's a laptop, and then people talked about notebooks, but the tablet was a category that was defined, created, and I think it's about 34% penetration from a US marketplace. So when you look at the tablet market in comparison with the television market, it's an interesting thing that a lot of people in the mobile space haven't paid attention and now are starting to pay attention and catch up to the fact that there are 289 million from a television perspective. And the stat that I thought was very interesting is this one. There's 31 million people who apparently have one TV, which you would think is what you need because you can only watch one TV at a time. But when you start looking at households, the number to take away is there are 289 million people in the United States who own at least one TV. And I don't know what those 119 million people up at the top are doing, but they have more than 4 televisions per household. So when you start thinking about the marketplace as to what are people doing from a video perspective, from a media consumption perspective, television clearly dominates in terms not just of the numbers, but in terms of hours of people spending time in front of the television. The term couch potato comes primarily from the television space. And what we really are starting to see is you have this massive ecosystem around the television industry. And when you talk about TVs, I think, somebody earlier at lunch was asking me about, will Apple launch a TV? And by that I meant the traditional TV, not the Apple TV that they've already launched. And when you start looking at why are people interested in the television space, it's really interesting to see the ecosystem around TV. And when I talk about $1 trillion marketplace, it was great. 13 years ago when I was starting out mPortal, you always had the chart that you had to have a M in the front and it ended up in billions. So you had $1 billion marketplace and you have $1 billion market cap. So I said, now we're going to the $1 trillion market cap potential. But when you look at the market, what we're talking about, video and television, and why tablets are very significant is, on the left-hand side, you're starting to see what I call traditional television, video, cable players. People like Comcast, people like AT&T from their UVerse perspective, Dish Network, DirecTV, both in the US and also globally. You have a traditional cable telephony or a paid TV market with millions of users. Over the last several years, what you started to see is that space is being disrupted by attackers, people such as Hulu, people such as Netflix, who's obviously the big example locally, who are starting to look at not TV as a consumer electronics device or a hardware play, but as a means for delivering content, as a means for delivering video primarily. One of the interesting stats that I saw recently is on any given night in the United States, over 50% of all traffic, web traffic, is Netflix. So when you start thinking about what are people doing, is they're watching video at a ridiculous rate. And if you look at the YouTube numbers on the amount of video being uploaded into YouTube, the amount of video being consumed, you're looking at a very massive ecosystem, not just in terms of the television content, you're looking at online video, and then you look at all of the content as ad-supported. The number that I saw was something like, if you look at a $40 billion online market from an advertising perspective, the ecosystem around television is in the $300 to $400 billion from an advertising perspective. So what does this mean from a tablet perspective? I don't think tablet players are looking at it and saying, I want to launch a TV, and this is my prediction, and you can take it for what it's worth. I don't think Apple's going to launch a TV as in a traditional box, but I think you're going to start to see everybody going after the living room, which is the central hub for all of this money that is being transferred. So when we talk about, as you can see, when we talk about are we good? All right, is that clear? Yeah. So over here, what we're talking about is people from the consumers, the traditional couch potatoes are watching about 33 hours of television a week. And you say, what does that really mean? It is a $350 billion advertising market. So when you start looking at the economics of video and when you start looking at linear broadcast television and video on demand, advertising and the ad model is pretty significant for all things to do with television. And then the next up is paid television, what we call as cable TV, is about $180, $200 billion market. And then $75 billion is the hardware market. So when I talk about why would you launch a product with very low margins, there are reasons why you could do it, depending on the kind of brand you are. But the bigger numbers are the top two numbers. And I thought that was interesting. One of our marketing people did the analysis. It's about $2,000 per person in the United States is what this industry is driving. A long time ago, I did work with Disney, and one of the ways Disney looked at, similar to the Capital One, what's in your wallet, Disney didn't look at you and say, you spend so much money on a Disney ride or so much money on a Disney movie. They called it share of wallet. They said, what does the average American spend on entertainment? And then what is our share of it? So it didn't matter that you did not go to a ride. So they never viewed Six Flags as a competition. They viewed everything that you spent and what percentage of that could they get. So when you start looking at this market, I think people are now looking at it from a tablet perspective and saying, what is the share per American or per person on the earth that we could get? Which leads us to the stat, and I think he had a slightly different, higher number Curtis had in his presentation, is there is a radically changing consumer behavior in the world today. It used to be you ate in the kitchen and you watched your TV in the living room and you slept in the bedroom and you had a study for your office or your work capability. That's a staggering number. Is 41% of tablets are being used in the bedroom. And Curtis made a comment, I don't know what people are doing in their bedroom, but we know that they're definitely doing something with their tablets. And that has changed from the perspective that it is no longer a television experience, but it's a media consumption experience. One example is I watch a show, Modern Family, which is an ABC show. I've never seen it on television. I don't know when it's on, and I don't know what channel on my television it is on. But what I do is I use the ABC Player app, and I always watch it on my tablet. So for me, the concept of prime time doesn't exist or has changed. And when you start looking at advertising spend and advertising dollars, they're being shifted, not significantly yet, but over time, you're going to start seeing that the ad dollars are going to change in the marketplace. The other big reason why tablets are becoming significant is a lot of my customers are Time Warner, Comcast, Cablevision, and the major mobile operators. And a term that nobody likes to talk about is the expression cord cutting, which is essentially when you talk to somebody in college, when you talk to somebody under 25 years of age, they don't see why they need to buy cable TV. And they view their cable operator as a broadband provider. So you buy your internet connectivity from them, but you don't really buy your television or your video content from them. 5 million is not a large number when you start thinking about what the total marketplace is. But where the industry is going is, and I learned a new phrase, it must be a consulting speak, is instead of cord cutting, they're calling it cord shaving, which is you don't actually cut the cord, you shave it, which is the revenue per subscriber is going down. It doesn't go to zero because you still need internet connectivity. So you don't get rid of your broadband connection. But what you do is you say, I'll use Netflix, I'll use Hulu, I'll use YouTube and consume all the content. I don't need a cable package. And I think that stat is here. We're talking about 300, 400,000 people last year who, quote unquote, cut their cords. But it's not as if these people don't watch television. The pattern hasn't changed. The other thing we're seeing is the amount of television or television video content actually has stayed the same. So it's not as if people are watching less TV. They are watching TV and they're consuming things on their tablet and they're online. So if you look at where do people get their content, is a lot of it is online. So there's both their desktop as well as their laptops. And over time, the tablet is starting to get significant adoption from a video perspective. One of the things we did at mPortal was we did the entire multi-screen experience for this year's Oscars with ABC Disney. And the most fascinating thing about the Oscars this year was, it was a global audience. We launched it primarily in the US. And we also started looking at, clearly the television is something that they've been doing for years, but we did all the iOS devices, we did all the Android devices, we also did the Kindle. So you truly were able to look at where are people watching, what are they doing on TV, what are they doing online, what are they doing on the tablets. The other thing we were able to do was really look at, we had something called Backstage Cam and live video feeds. So while you had the television showing you the Oscars, we had 8 different camera feeds on your tablet. So you could say, instead of watching what's on TV, you could see the fashion cam that showed specifically fashion of the celebrities. You also had a fan cam that showed the fans. So you were starting to look at, while the television had just one feed, your tablet allowed you to control what you were watching right down to the actual camera. So when you start talking about the NFL and you talk about, I know somebody from Major League Soccer is here, when you start talking about, I think for 20, 30 years we've been talking about interactive TV, but you're now starting to see the ability to have multiple IP streams, multiple feeds controlled by the user. So that was a fascinating thing for us to work on. And what we did was really look at, if you're familiar with the concept of, people are starting to talk about the second screen experience. And I think this is a very interesting word because the television is the first screen and people are looking at the second screen is either your mobile or primarily your tablet. So from a tablet perspective, why it's significant is when people talk about, a lot of people are watching 33 hours of television a week. This is an interesting stat that I've always said. When I say I'm watching 33 hours of television a week, what it means is the television is on, I'm in the same room 33 hours a week. But when I'm watching a game or when I'm watching a show, there is a whole bunch of things that people are doing. And if you look at tablet users, they look at a lot of other information about a show, information about their friends, voting, polling, recommendations. There is a whole bunch of things that people are doing while they're watching TV. And this becomes changing the tires while the plane's in midair or something like that. So, and they pulled it off. Are we good? Okay. So one of the things we've done is we've built a platform around the tablet called Screen B, and it's a play on not Screen A, but Screen B. And I'll show you a little video, and you can download the application from the iPad store as well. So Screen B is... should work. So I lost audio. So it allows you to do social discovery, so you can see all your friends, you can see what they're watching, you get information on the show, you can look at episodes, you can actually set an episode. We're working on a DVR interface, so you can say, hey, I want to watch Restaurant Wars, but record it. It pulls all your likes and dislikes from Facebook. We actually track in real time all the Twitter feeds of all the television. A stat I saw was 17% of all tweets are about television or TV shows. We also have the ability to go and chat with friends about a show. So I can tell my friend Brett, hey, what did you think about this episode? All of that is something that we're building onto the tablet platform. It's also available on phones, but what we're seeing the tablet is a very unique experience where while you're watching television, today it's largely passive, so you're looking for additional information, looking for scores, but we're seeing the interactivity. We're starting to get a lot of requests from broadcasters in addition to television, in addition to cable TV companies, and what broadcasters are looking for is, Anderson wants to do when he's doing Anderson Cooper AC360, he wants people to tweet or give him real-time feedback about a specific story or a specific segment. So that part of the industry is really changing. So what we really are doing is building out experiences, not just on tablet, but we see the marriage between mobile, tablet, and connected television really starting to take off. We've been working on it for the last couple of years, but we're a couple of very specific points. Yesterday or 2 days ago, Apple bought a company called Matcha TV. They do very similar things. They have the ability to pull your content. They give you show information. And then yesterday, Facebook announced it's not an API, but they're now going to give you feeds where while almost all the celebrities and all the TV shows have a Facebook page, but now you have the ability to post from it. You also have the ability to track things about television shows. So clearly the big players are also starting to look at the marriage between television and tablet and content. So the perfect what's in it for me. So when you start looking at it, either as a developer, as a person in the market, the three main takeaways that we think are happening is tablet-based solutions are very profitable. We're already seeing that when we're doing tablet-based products, our services business, we have a higher margin because it's video, it's rich media, so it actually commands a premium as opposed to even generic mobile. The advertising-based model around video is very big, and I think that's starting to grow even further. And then the last one is, unlike with other mediums, it's not about just putting up a website, what a lot of people got away with during the early stages of online. I think people are starting to look at tablets as a brand new category, completely disruptive to the market. And I think that's the big thing that we're seeing in the market. And hopefully those of you who are looking at the tablet platform will realize that. I think I don't know if I'm over on time, Pete, but that's pretty much the wrap. One last plug, we are looking for people in Seattle and DC and Atlanta, and we can't find them. So if you're sitting out there or if you know anybody, let me know. We also have, if you're interested in the deck and the stats behind it, there's that's the link, and you can go ahead and download it from there or let me know. Are we okay on time? Thank you.